Hi, everyone. Welcome to Reimagine 2020. I'm one of your hosts, Artur, and today we have with us Daniel, co-founder and COO of one of the largest lending platforms in crypto. So looking forward to talking about all things Celsius, about unbanking ourselves, and just finding out a bit more about Daniel's background, as well as his views on our ever so fast growing industry. So, but I guess maybe let's get to the sort of discuss the most urgent issue, or how has Celsius been affected by the most recent COVID?
Well, we've all been affected to some extent, right? I mean, some travel and more than others, and it's been a challenging time. I think this has been a time of that would allow us to kind of all reflect. This is a global crisis, not only a health one, but one of obviously, an economic one like we've never seen in many years, maybe since the 30s. I think that we're still in this unknown territory. And this is something that we all companies share, even in this industry. And it's been challenging. Remote work, first and foremost, we have 60 people all around the world, all working from home, different time zones, different homes. And how do you communicate? How do you hire a new team? We've been growing the team, almost doubling it the last several months since we've raised. How do you onboard people who have never met their colleagues and cannot just kind of sit down and learn and educate one another on the various stuff that we're trying to do for the community? Significant uncertainty is one other component. Like you don't know where the world is going. You don't know when vaccine is going to come. You don't know how world economies are going to continue to react. So it's this, we've all had an opportunity to kind of sit down and take a step back and say, okay, what does this new world really mean for us as a business? And how do you plan in a very uncertain time? Where do we go next from here when you don't know not only what next year is going to look like, but what next month's going to look like? So, for us, dealing with the challenges meant one thing: is we're going to go back to the core and focus on what the user want and how we're growing the community and how we continue delivering the brand promise of Celsius, which is really to put economic freedom in the hands of the people. But it's also been very good to us. We've raised a really nice round. I guess we're going to talk about that a bit later. Business has been growing significantly the last 6 months or so. We just crossed the $1.1 billion in customers' contributions. More and more users. We're almost at 140,000 registered users. More than 60,000 people were earning interest on the platform, 3,000 loans. And we're seeing, every day, more and more people benefiting from our services, which appear, especially during these economic times, that more and more people need. So it's kind of double-edged sword, challenging on the one hand and a great opportunity for us as we grow.
I mean, it sounds like, you guys, despite the crisis, you guys have definitely been also been able to manage it quite well. But maybe before we get into that, could you, because as I know, Celsius is not exactly your first rodeo. Could you maybe talk a bit about your background and how you actually sort of found yourself co-founding Celsius?
Oh God, I started my career 20 years ago. I moved to the United States from Israel. I went to college, got myself an economics and policy degree, and mainly economics, and then kind of, thought I was always an entrepreneur at heart, and never really saw myself working for an investment bank or one of these companies. Still started to work for a consulting company, and after 3 to 4 years of doing that, I figured I'm a pretty bad employee because I like to create and initiate and build things. So one startup led to the other, one failure led to another failure, to more learning and more growth, and started a few companies. One of them was with Alex Mashinsky, my co-founder and CEO. We did our first gig together in 2006, and then we built Groundlink, which was the Uber before Uber. We started this kind of movement of of booking a car. Even before there was an iPhone, we started allowing people to order cars in their Blackberries. If you recall, there was a device some 15 years ago called Blackberries. And so we had our first, we had cars all over the world, 110 countries, tens of thousands of vehicles. And, 2008 came, and, speaking of uncertainty, I believe we did not plan correctly. And even though Alex is big, and an amazing visionary, I really think saw the future. The corporate investors that we had did not. I recall having these board meetings with them and talking to about Uber. And they're like, Uber, this small company, San Francisco, who cares? We've got all these cars. And we're like, oh no, they're coming. It's gonna be there. And like, no, they're gonna go bankrupt in a year. Like, no, we have to move into on-demand vehicles. We have to give people the opportunity, not only business travel. They're like, nope, we care about business travel. Stop what you're doing. Uber is a bunch of bullshit. Company's gonna go bankrupt any day. Fast forward what? Almost 10 years from that day. I mean, we are where we are. So after Groundlink, I ran a few companies. One of them was a robotic company here in Israel, which I joined. Another company that tried to compete with Yelp that did not work quite well. And in 2017, I bumped into Alex in the street, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he's like, "Hey, what are you working on?" I'm like, this other startup I was running didn't work so well. He's like, "Hey, let's go grab a beer. We don't drink." So it was a cup of coffee. And we started working together. And Alex at that point had a small family office VC, and I joined his VC, and we started investing in Israeli companies mainly, but not only, AI marketplaces. And then, a good friend of mine is like, there's this thing called crypto. And I'm like, crypto, blockchain, yeah, that's interesting. And I told Alex, and Alex has been looking at blockchain for quite, had been looking. And we started looking at the opportunity, and we're like, well, should we invest? What should we do? And both Alex and I are entrepreneurs. So we're like, look, if I bring Alex back from retirement, and if I go back to doing just one more startup after the one I just finished, it needed to be something of importance. It needed to be driven by a purpose. It was the right thing for me. It was the right thing for him. And it was also the right thing for the team that we were building. And if there's one thing that has changed in the world today, especially with this young generation, is that people are looking to do something that has a meaning, that has a great sense of purpose. And we looked at what was going on with people and how they were banking, and we saw the premise that blockchain can bring when it comes to decentralization and kind of removing the middleman and hopefully building a financial system that is more fair. What you're seeing with what the Fed is doing, and I guess we're going to talk about that, is that we're seeing the wealth gap increasing more and more and more as the Fed injecting more capital, buying these assets that make the rich people even richer and the poor people even poorer. This is not economic driven decision, that's politics. And when we started this, we knew that if we are to do something, if we are to venture into yet another startup, it needed to mean something to us. And we looked at blockchain, and we looked at what's the use case, what can blockchain that time and still today, it's still an evolving technology. We're still not there as an industry. We can get there, and we will. And by that point in time, we felt that the Netscape moment, that strong use case is all about financial services and about creating a more just financial system. So we started the company together in the middle of 2017 in Alex's apartment, and Alex put some money and we started the company, and then decided to do an ICO. Which was, at that point in time, you felt that people were just standing in line with a piece of white paper, and they were all handing us money and people money. With a successful ICO, and I think what's really unique about us is that when you look at the white paper that was written almost 3 years ago, more or less, I believe we are one of the very few companies that have kept true to the promise that we made in that white paper, and we're very, very proud at the team that we've kind of built and surround ourselves with, and how they have kept delivering for our community. So that's how we started this. Celsius today is a company that is truly global. Our service is available in 114 countries. We have offices in almost 10, San Francisco offices, people working, San Francisco and Atlanta and Boston, and obviously a big center in London. Tel Aviv is becoming a huge center for us when it comes to developing our technology and our cybersecurity solutions. And Belgrade, Serbia, which is where some of our developers are located. And part of what we're going to do with this raise, which we'll discuss a bit later, is expand east. Start an operation in Asia and a few other countries that I'm going to keep as a surprise for many of our users.
I mean, truly kind of, spectacular story, because I think, and I think especially what you mentioned, how I think you genuinely are one of the few companies, very few companies that have kept to their, who actually, what they wrote into the white paper, who actually took it seriously, right? But and I think the figures, so some of the figures that you mentioned, I mean, I think they're, incredibly, definitely, massive achievements. Can you maybe talk a bit more about that? So before you mentioned 60,000 people have taken loans on your platform.
They did not take.
It's very rarely when we see companies in crypto. It's mostly experiments, right? Like incredibly innovative, technologically something completely new, never before seen. But the actual usage figures are always quite not exactly there yet. You guys are you truly stand out.
Look, I think that to be honest, it's shocking for me too. I mean, we're running. It's not a bank. We're not licensed to be a bank. We have a shirt. Celsius is not a bank, right? So it's certainly a financial service that if you told me a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that one day we were going to have tens of thousands of people who were interacting with us on the platform and taking fiat loans and deposit crypto, and to the point that we're going to cross $1 billion in deposits, so to speak, I'm going to tell you, you're crazy. I'm not so sure what you're drinking. Give me some of that, right? We planned for it. I think we worked extremely hard, and we knew one thing, right? We knew that, with all the respect to our competitors, and I think competition is a good thing. I'm seeing what Coinbase is doing. I'm seeing what Nexo and BlockFi. You won't find me talking badly about the competition. I think this is a big market. It's going to become even bigger. But we focused on the user. We focused on the community, right? The premise is do good before you do well. And this is not a cliche for us. It's not one of these plaques that sit in an office. It is when we build the product, when we launch a service, we keep asking ourselves, is that the right thing to do for the user? Is that something that's going to benefit the community? And some of the challenges is the regulation. Can you do this? Can you do it here? Can you not do it here? What license you need here? What legal framework you can operate? Things kept changing on us by the week. But we as long as we work with the regulator, as long as we are surrounding ourselves with professionals, with great auditors, with great law firms that give us the guidance to navigate this uncharted territory. And as long as we build a product that is really easy to use, right? What Steve Jobs brought to us with the iPhone is this device that was so beautiful and so easy, and the user interface. I dream of, and this is something we're working on right now, of a mobile app that would allow my mom in her 70s to deposit and take a loan, to buy crypto, right? The reason that I believe we're stuck is not only a use case, but also a user experience, right? If we want to bring the next 100 million people, the next billion people into crypto, we have to make it easier for them to transact, easier for them to pay, easier for them to deposit, easier for them to move coins. Look, I've been doing this for 3 years. And even me, right? I'm like, oh my God, so do I press here? Do I have to have this hash? And do I need to move this? And oh my God, is it coming? Is it coming? Can we refresh? Right? Mm-hmm. We're never going to go into mainstream if we don't make this simple for people. And the reason that we've been growing is the use case. We all want to earn interest, right? And when we're talking about unbanking ourselves as a company, is because when you look at the US bank today, you barely, if you're lucky, to making 1% of your deposits. If you want to take a loan in the US, you're lucky to even get a loan. And if you get one from your credit card, from a bank, you pay 12, 15, 20%. We knew that if we wanted to be successful, we will need to have an amazing user experience, but also a fair and transparent financial service. So we pay 6, 8, 10% on the various deposits. So people go into the app and deposit their coins vis-a-vis the bank that pays maybe 1%. We offer people fiat loans at 3 to 4%, 5, 6 quite often, depending on the LTV, when the typical bank would charge you 10, 12, and 20. And it's all about convincing people that they can trust not only the math, but also the brand, that I think is the secret sauce of Celsius that keeps growing worldwide.
Can you tell me maybe a bit more about what are for people that I guess have not taken a crypto loan before? Or can you maybe give a bit more insights of what are the most kind of most popular use cases of essentially? So I guess everyone knows what it means to take a loan, but what are the most common use cases that you see on?
It's a good question. Yeah, it's a great question. So so people so again. Unfortunately, still to this day, if you want to go to IKEA, you can't pay with Bitcoin, right? So you have to either liquidate that Bitcoin, or what you can do, if you don't want to liquidate your assets in order to go to IKEA or to the grocery store to buy whatever this may need to buy, you can take a loan against that Bitcoin. Right? You can take stable coins, and then to cash them out, you can take fiat loans. And so first use case, I believe my assets would appreciate, but I still need cash. I don't want to sell it. Can you help me out? Right. So you come to the wallet, you basically make a deposit, or you use the crypto that is held and earning interest as a collateral, and against that collateral, people take a loan. And the loan is done within a day or two, depending where you are in the world. And depending on the license that we may or may not need or may not have, we can give you loans. In the United States, there are some 30 some states that we cannot give loans. In other parts of the world, there are some many countries in which we do not operate because the regulator has deemed it necessary for us to have a license. So wherever we can operate, we operate. And the key, as I mentioned earlier, is making it really simple. Make it easy and make it super simple to deposit. A month and a half ago, we launched an on-off ramp that would make it really easier for you to use a credit card or your bank account to buy crypto. And when you buy it, you deposit it. We use the collateral. You basically ask for a loan against those assets, and we wire you money. Some people also don't want to sell the assets because they do not want to pay taxes if there was some capital gains in the asset, but they still need cash. And some people we're seeing borrow from us in order to go out there and buy even more Bitcoin because they believe that the Bitcoin would appreciate, or Bitcoin or any other asset that matter, versus their dollars, right? So there are various use cases. When we started, we had, I don't know, year and a half ago, we had like 30 loans, and now we're in the thousands, and it's growing, right? And it's growing really significantly. And what's amazing for us, at least, it's growing with very little marketing, right? It's really word of mouth. We don't spend too much money on marketing. We believe that if you build a great service that is easy to use, that provides great value to the end user, they're going to go out there and tell their friends, and we make it really easy for people to tell their friends. And we even reward people as they kind of go and help us to expand the network. So these are kind of the 2-3 use cases when it comes to borrowing cash from us, borrowing fiat from Celsius.
Got it. And but you also mentioned that there's a long road to go in terms of getting the next 100 million people into crypto. What would be like the one use case that's most demanded that you don't today have? what do your customers ask for the most that that you guys don't have yet?
Well,
Or
think about
what you mentioned, the fiat on ramp we recently launched.
yeah. I think that's a big one, right? So look, it's making the on-off ramp easier for people, and we're putting a lot of emphasis now on the UI UX. We're working on a new mobile service that will launch sometime, I don't know, hopefully before the middle of next year. But we're putting a lot of emphasis. We're working with a few a UI UX expert that went back to our community, that has encouraged the community to go back to their parents, even as I said, and say, okay, you know what do we need to do to make this easy for you? What do we need to do in order for you to join? So I think UI UX was going to solve part of it. But I think that when you ask an individual, why are you not in crypto yet, right? This is not a Celsius problem or a Nexo problem or a BlockFi problem. This is all of our problem. And I think partially it's because, and hopefully this economic crisis is going to solve part of it, but people are still seeing their current currency, dollar, euro, is something more trustworthy, is something more stable, right? For people to liquidate, to move from, cash or stocks or bonds to crypto, we will need to have regulators come in and looking at this industry and giving us guidelines. And I think these regulators, more guidance from regulators is going to encourage more financial institutions that rely on that regulation to come in. We're seeing some progress. Goldman Sachs just nominated someone. We're seeing Merrill Lynch is thinking about getting more and more into this asset class. And as more of these institutional investors come in, hedge funds, mutual funds, endowments, looking at this asset class not only as a speculative asset, but also as potentially a better store of value, especially now. And I think we can get there with all this trillions of dollars that have been printed. And hopefully all these forces put together are going to bring that sense of stability that people who are not in crypto need right now. For example, when you talk to people, and I have these conversations all the time, right? I say, why are you leaving your dollars in the bank and earn less than 1% when you can earn 8% with me? And the typical answer is really simple. They say, well, my dollars are safe, right? And you're like, yeah, but they earn 1%. And what they say, look, the delta is not big enough for me, 6-7% extra, to risk those dollars, right? So I think when insurance, right now we're one of the few companies that have insurance on hot wallets, right? It's once we can start offering more and more of these products that are in a way insured, that are less volatile, with a much better user experience, what I believe you will see is more and more people are not in crypto, feeling more comfortable to get into the space. So look, finance has been around for hundreds of years, right? This is just the beginning. We have the tendency, especially with this, we're living this now, this instant gratification. We want everything to happen now. I've got a 12-year-old that does have no patience whatsoever. This is crazy generation. So while we want everything to happen now, I think with some patience and with more and more credible companies like Celsius, like BlockFi, like Fidelity that's now coming in, has been in this industry, you'll see more and more people feeling comfortable. And I would like to mention another thing. I think that the way that ICOs were structured, or not as regulated as they should have been, I think that we created, the damage was self-inflicted. A lot of people lost a lot of money on really terrible projects, right? That eroded trust for the whole industry, right? So hopefully this will be forgotten. Hopefully this natural selection of companies like us and like some of our competition that has survived what's called the nuclear winter, are now having stronger balance sheets with real products, right? We have real products, real revenues, real customer base, and so on profitability. Bring more people more companies like Celsius, and I think we see more and more people coming into crypto.
But Is this something that you see kind of happening now as well? 'Cause I think like there is a lot of talk that we are now have been
Yeah,
for the past couple months in a new this like
yeah,
bull
we're
market,
seeing
and
it, man.
there is quite a lot of, but there's a lot of like fundamental differences, right? Because so I think one of the very big differences is from like 2017 and 2018, the entire madness that happened was that we no longer have these like companies raising completely cosmic amounts of money off of essentially, just a white paper of to decentralize something that either shouldn't be and or can't be decentralized, right? But this really like isn't happening yet. No one's actually like raising that much money. There's a lot of money being traded. So how do you think about all of this, especially I guess like given how Bitcoin technically was born out of the last financial crisis, what it kind of, and what it represents. Now it should be its kind of time to shine, right?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, we were all hoping that this economic crisis, which is still in the making, right? I mean, we're not out of the danger zone. You look at the stock market, you're like, oh, things are great. S&P all-time high, and it's insane to me. And you still
Does
have
not look
more
like a
than
crisis right now.
exactly. Does not look like a crisis. People saying to me, "What are you talking about? I just bought myself a Ferrari." I'm like, Ferrari? This guy doesn't have food to bring on the table, and this is the essence to this, right? I mean, some of these monetary policies that are injecting trillions of dollars, as I said earlier, um, the Fed has run out of things to buy, right? And so they've been buying all these assets, stocks, and who owns stocks in this country? In this country, in my country, the United States, you know, people actually can afford to own stocks, and these guys have been seeing their assets just increase in value, while so many people in this country, we've got 27% unemployment. That's an enormous amount of money. Israel, where I'm at right now, is experiencing one of the worst economic crises it has had in 40 years. And so you've got a group of people that I know that just buying bigger and bigger houses, and you've got a lot of people that I know that are unemployed right now. You would hope that this type of injection, there was this thing called modern money theory, right? That believes there is no inflation. Let's just continue to print, and don't worry about inflation. And it feels like we're living in, the funny thing is, before this crisis, they really struggled to get fans for that theory. Now everyone is an MMT expert, right? So, but you look at this, you look at, what is it, 70, 80 trillion dollars, if not more, and you're like, this cannot continue. And if you're thinking this way, you're like, well, maybe the dollar isn't worth as much, or has to somehow lose its value, or people's faith in the dollar. And we know it's so hard because this is the currency of the world, right? But you're seeing what's happening with gold, right? More and more people. You're seeing Warren Buffett now betting on gold. And if he's betting on gold, he's betting against the US economy, if not the world economy. And then you're asking yourself, well, wait a second, how about Bitcoin, right? How about this digital asset, fixed supply? This has to reward us somehow. I was hoping that we would see Bitcoin at 20,000 by now, but I think that's part of the good news. When something goes high that fast, it's inevitable that will go down. So I'm actually more comfortable with this slow increase in Bitcoin prices. I think it's more, it makes more sense. I think it's more sustainable for the future. And my hope is that as people are seeing what's happening out there and telling themselves, this cannot continue, inflation will eventually, pick up its head. Where is a safer place for me? And more people will choose not only gold, but also Bitcoin. Remains to be seen. I think it's coming.
And I think in terms of like more and more people finding out about crypto and sort of starting to use it. So Celsius recently announced that you're going to be offering loans against I think there's 26 different cryptocurrencies. Can you maybe like share a bit more, like how or why is this a big deal? Because I'm assuming that like you mentioned, you don't build something unless people demand it, right?
Yeah. So what was interesting is that for us, no. So let's go back to the basics for a second. If I am to offer you a loan, against asset which is held in collateral, I need to be able to liquidate that asset if you don't pay me, right? So a year ago, it was hard for us to issue loans against certain assets because the volume was not there. It was hard to liquidate. The volatility of many of these assets was such that it wouldn't give us enough time if, God forbid, something happened, and something did happen in March. We might, we can discuss it later. That if something like that happens, we want to give you enough time. We need enough time to liquidate some of those assets in case you say, I don't have money to give you back, right? So we started with Bitcoin and ETH because we felt, well, there's enough liquidity out there. The volumes are really high, and even if it drops, it won't drop by 80%. So we started there. We felt comfortable. Our risk model felt comfortable with that kind of a risk. And then we started getting calls from people saying, well, it's nice you're offering Bitcoin Ether, but I have Ripple and I have Cell and I have some 20 other coins and I need cash too. Why would you discriminate, quote unquote? And we're like, look, what does the risk model say? What are our models say about these various coins? What's volumes are like? What's liquidity are like? What happens if there is a sort of a flash crash like this? Can we exit that coin fast enough in order to protect the liquidity that we have on the balance sheet or that we have through partners and give that money back? So over time, we developed a more sophisticated, more reliable risk model that would allow us to take a look at various coins that people hold and held, and to offer fiat loans against those other coins as well. And we hope to continue to add more and more coins as the volatility of these various coins decreases, as more liquidity is out there, as more volumes are going up, etc.
And I think what I would be incredibly interested to hear is tell me like you mentioned, what did you do in on that kind of, I guess, black swan-ish event in March?
It's we entrepreneurs always say that cliche that startups are all about the people and the culture, and we have an amazing team, and for good or for bad, at that point in time, we didn't have some of these automated systems that would automatically liquidate people's loans, and we all roll up our sleeves and start calling people and start working with people, telling you, look, you either have to give us some money back, or you have to allow us to sell some of these coins because we don't want to do it to you. And when you look at the feedback against some of our competition, and once again, it's great, they're out there and it's fine, and more are coming, and more power to all of us as more and more companies are getting into this space. But when you look at the feedback, the negative feedback that went against some of them, it's because a lot of people felt like, oh, no one called me. Oh, no one told me that I'm about to lose all my coins. And what we've done with hundreds of loans, we have been in touch. We had 20 plus people working day and night around the clock, contacting users and giving them, at least a fair warning. Look, it's coming. If you're not going to help us out with getting that feedback, we have to do this. And people weren't happy, but they appreciated that human touch. And when you think about DeFi versus CeFi and DeFi platforms versus us, that human touch is still something that people need and people want. So we were very, very lucky. There were very few loans that we had to liquidate, but we did it in partnership, in coordination with that user base. And now it's all about building that technology that will mimic some of that, right? Sending you push notifications, sending you an email, telling you, hey, it's coming, work with us, call us, let us know. I think that's such an important element of building trust. And when you look at kind of the graph of loans from March to where are we today, August, it's almost tripled. And that's tremendous for us, tremendous. And that's a tremendous, that's a testament to the amazing team that we have in our lending department.
I mean, and I think you have to be right when you say that, because regardless of this sort of, kind of unprecedented kind of, black swan event, since then, you guys have achieved, I think, two kind of like pretty notable, one definitely more than the other kind of milestones, one being your recent fundraise from kind of incredibly prominent positions in the industry, and secondly actually becoming profitable, which is, I think,
yeah. So look, I mean,
in crypto can say that.
Yeah, look, I think it's a combination of controlling costs, especially during these tough economic times for crypto, even before COVID, right? As we discussed, there was this uncertainty, and you have the tendency as a startup, when you raise money, is to go out there and get bigger offices and give people all these perks and spend all this money in marketing. And the way I run the firm, and the way that Alex has run the firm, is all about let's look at what we've raised and let's do the right thing, and let's stay frugal, because you just never know. So it's a combination of kind of controlling costs and continue to deliver value for the users that would hopefully bring enough users to our corporate customers that borrow from us, and then combining increasing revenues and controlling costs resulted in a few months of profitability, which was nice. But profit on its own, I don't think it's the important KPI. Amazon did not show profit for 2 centuries until it did, because it was all about reinvesting some of these earnings back into growing the brand and grabbing a bigger market share. So since the successful fundraising, which our team, Alex, and our funding team and our finance team worked extremely hard on. We've been thinking, how we're going to invest, and where we're going to invest, and where do we want to go from here, and what are the opportunities out there, and what, just like you said, what other services we can work on building and offering our customers to augment kind of the interest bearing and fiat loan services that we have right now. What are the countries we can launch in, and what kind of licenses we need to get, because if there's one thing we all understand and know, and I think it's a good thing, that this industry is becoming far more regulated than before, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, as we discussed earlier, part of the reason that we haven't really grown outside speaking to the choir situation is because a lot of bad people raise a lot of money and bought few Teslas and I don't know what else with that capital. And I think regulation is going to help us to mature. And regulation is going to bring, more customers. And as we discussed, there's corporate institutions. And as we are kind of thinking about, well, okay, the world is becoming more regulated. What does this mean for Celsius? What does this mean for where we want to operate? It certainly means more licenses. It certainly means more better legal framework in which to operate, using based on which to operate for us, and growing into various other countries and places where people are demanding those services and services that we cannot provide just because we don't have a specific license or memo, whatever you want to call it. So we're gonna and then infrastructure, automation, right? The only way to do this, to offer the only way to scale truly is by building the technology necessary to allow us to automate a lot of these functions that are currently run in Excel, right? And that's what we're going to focus on the next year or two as we expand our services to different places around the world.
Are you today? Is Celsius today holding licenses in any jurisdictions?
So we've applied for a few. With your permission, I'm going to kind of keep it to myself, as we do not want to signal. It's all right. We don't want to signal where we go next.
Mhm.
In the US, we are an MSB with FinCEN. In the US, we work when we offer these various loans. We offer it in states in which lending licenses are not necessary. We've worked extremely hard with some amazing law firms that have looked into the various jurisdictions in which we can operate and offer these various interest-bearing accounts. But we are in the process right now, especially as a result of this raise, in which we are really ramping up our compliance and legal teams to go out there around the world and start acquiring and filing for various licenses that would really help us to scale this business into the millions of users.
And regarding your this race specifically, so I understand that this was not only a kind of large fundraise for you, but it was also a strategic investment for your investor. And can you share a bit more about what is the format of the collaboration that is sort of that you guys, how can like a crypto exchange or like such a large exchange such as Bitfinex and or a stablecoin company and a lending platform such as yourself, what is the kind of what was the thought process there?
Look, they saw us as a strategic extension, if you wish, of what they were doing. They're working as an exchange that borrows and lends and work with various corporate customers. They saw what we were doing in the retail market, and they're like, wow, it's really interesting. So we've been partnering with them and looking at different ways to offer each other services that would benefit our respective users. And as we've done more and more business together, the relationship grew, and we've gotten to know one another, to know the respective teams. And they're like, look, I mean, we love what you guys are doing. They feel and felt during almost 6 months of due diligence that they've done on us, that the Celsius brand is strong, that the economic model is solid. And to be honest, we felt way more comfortable with Bitfinex than with some VCs that wouldn't really understand how to swallow this token situation. Like, token, what does this mean? What kind of rights? How does this work? And Bitfinex understood. They're in the business, and they saw the retail brand that we were building. And it's an amazing opportunity for us to get even cheaper liquidity and offer services that very few companies can offer. And we're very, very fortunate to have them as our not only strategic investor, but a true partner. Look, they are a company not to be reckoned with. This is a behemoth, and we're excited to partner with them. It's a really honor.
And I mean, once again, congratulations on that.
And don't forget what else we did here. 10 plus mil came from Bitfinex, but also 10 plus mil came from Back to the Future, right? This was like a crowdfunding campaign. It was always, I would call it an ICO too, because it was done in a very regulatory way, right? But it allowed us to really open up and give our community the opportunity not only to participate with the token, to invest in the token, to it's in the US it's a security, but outside the US it's a utility that we've worked extremely hard to provide our users. But more than that, I think that we offered more than 1,000 investors. People who gave $2,000, $10,000 to our partner Back to the Future that is now investing in us. It's tremendous. People, the number of people that have emailed us, especially the last 6 to 8 months, said, hey, I want to invest. How can we do this? I want to be part of this. And remember, we're all about equalizing the playing field, right? We're all about giving people economic freedom. It's not a slogan on the wall. It's how we live. It goes into every decision that we make. And then when we start thinking, well, we need equity funding, right? Where should we go? Where does it make the most sense? So yes, Bitfinex, a strategic investor, made huge sense. And then when we saw these hundreds of emails coming from people over the world saying, I want to be part of this. Token is not enough. I get all this utility. I want to be part of Celsius. I want to invest in the future of this, innovative financial platform, right? And we're lucky to have met Bank to the Future guys and use their platform to offer, hundreds of people all around the world an opportunity to invest in Celsius, and that is tremendous for us. It's challenging because suddenly you don't have, one or two VCs that are like, sitting on your board. You have few hundreds, which them say, oh, I invested $1,000. What is this coin? How come it's purple and not pink? I'm like, dude, you just gave me $2,000. I'm not going to sit down and answer all your questions. Like, no, yes, you will. And it's great because they're so passionate. It's much more work for us because it's not one or two VCs. It's few hundred people that suddenly, because they give you, $2,000, they feel it's their right to pick up the phone and call you and say, oh, this is not cool. But it's also more fun because we're making a difference. We're not making a bunch of LPs from a VC richer. We're hopefully making people we have the same interest aligned with us, giving the opportunity to benefit from the future potential of Celsius. And that's great. I mean, this is super exciting.
That's honestly incredibly admirable. And I mean, congratulations so far. But Daniel, I mean, I know you're, as can be heard, you're an incredibly busy man, and we're running out of time here. One of my last questions to you would be to just to kind of, as we have a couple thousand students listening to this, to them, what would your kind of advice be to the students today that are looking at a career, or starting at a career or getting into blockchain today, as well as just generally those that that are stuck studying at home, don't know what to do with their lives?
I mean, look, being an entrepreneur is not for everyone. It's an emotional thing for me, right? Because it's so tough, and when you fall like, on your face, and it's all about picking yourself up and moving to the next thing. And but there's nothing more rewarding. There's absolutely nothing more rewarding. And I think this new generation understands that better than our parents' generation that kind of went out to the world after high school and possibly got a degree and then went out there to look for a stable job, to bring a paycheck home. And I think, look, we all have bills to pay and, rent and cars and whatnot. But we live once. And, I wake up every day, like Warren Buffett said, top tends to work, doing something truly incredible. And, when you do this, the exit or the non-exit or the IPO suddenly don't matter as much. I travel. I used to travel. We don't travel anymore. And I meet these people that I've never met, people with even more broken English than mine. And they're like, can I take a picture with you? And I'm like, you mean me? Like, what did I do? Like, no, you're from Celsius. It's thanks to you that I was able to buy my son a bike. It's thanks to you that I was able to pay all my child support. And I'm like, to me? They're like, yeah, you're from Celsius. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, wow, we're touching people. And let me tell you that it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if we sell this company. To be able to touch 100,000 people like that, there's nothing like it. So my advice to all of these students is to find what they love. And I know it's a kind of cliche, but truly to work and inquire and stay curious and read and meet people. And, the internet brings all this knowledge home. We don't have to go to school anymore in many ways. It's all here on YouTube, right? On these wonderful online universities. Go out there, learn a new skill, stay curious, find something that you believe can add value to others, and go out there and raise some money if you have to. And if you don't, start small, keep on building, keep on giving back. honestly, when we're old and we look back and we ask ourselves, what have we done? There is absolutely nothing more rewarding than doing that. This does not mean you'll be successful. I failed 6 times. I did. It was painful. I know my wife left me. It was terrible. But look, 6 startups after, hopefully we're doing good. And as long as we continue to do that, I think we're going to do well. In the final analysis, that's what matters. So focus on something. Try to look for that purpose and go out there and get it done.
Very well said. Thank you so much for your time. Once again, Daniel Leon from Celsius Network, company that, despite its kind of, I guess, your already considerable success, seems to be really only getting started.
Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the time. Thanks.